Welcome back to the show, everybody. Yesterday's market crash, we may have an explanation for you today. And check this out. Two major applicants for spot Bitcoin ETFs are moving forward. We got that and so much more. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show, everybody. You can follow us on Twitter and YouTube for exclusive content. Right now, $1.73 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is up 1.8%. Better than yesterday. Right now, 43,300 plus for Bitcoin and $2,236 and change for Ethereum. We see 92.4 billion plus Tether market cap, and we see XRP at number 6 spot at 58 cents. We're up 2.8, but still off by 9.3 on the 7-day. Now, yesterday we had a big crash, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to get into what possibly could have been behind some of that. And I want to kind of remind everybody that, remember, Wall Street, the large institutions, they're coming into play now. So a lot of weird things start happening that we're not used to seeing. It's because the big money is here and we're playing in their water now. This is not them playing in our water. They've decided this space is now theirs. Let's make no mistake about it. We don't have the kind of money that can compete with institutional dollars. That level of involvement is really speaking. The only thing that will change that angle, to me, from where I'm standing today, is use case utility. And the moment that we move beyond speculation driving market prices and into a new era of use case utility being the price driver for assets that have utility at all. Let's get moving forward on this. Now, let's skip the price range XRP today. We're going to look at the numbers before we get out of here. I want to remind you of this. 119 days from now, we're going to be at XRP Las Vegas, the largest XRP conference in the world, May 3rd, May 4th, 2024. Let me tell you, we're going to have Perry Ann Boren from the Chamber of Digital Commerce on stage. We're going to have Honorable Christian Carlo. Uphold's going to be there. iTrust is going to be there. Ripple's going to be there. And boy, I can't wait to tell you who's coming from there. But let me tell you this. There's going to be a benefit dinner, and I encourage you. This is going to be a charitable tax deduction write-off for yourself for doing this dinner. And I would encourage you to keep looking at this website and go here, because you will have the opportunity to be in the room for a fireside chat with none other than Brad Garlinghouse, John Deaton, Michael Arrington, and the Honorable Christian Carlo, who is also going to be on stage. Do not miss this, and so will John Deaton and many others. So, you're going to want to get this ticket and be in the same room. Let me tell you something. There's nothing like being in the same room with these people. You see them a lot. You hear them speak a lot. But when you're in the same room and you get a chance to actually engage and speak with them and then hear them talk right in the room with you is nothing like, I mean, look, humans are social creatures. I encourage you to take this opportunity. You know, these kinds of opportunities are just remarkable when you have them. So go to xrplasvegas.com, click the links, go get your Future of Digital Assets benefit dinner ticket before they're gone too. All of this is going to sell out, ladies and gentlemen. And here we see whales scooping up Bitcoin from weak hands. Don't let them shake you out. This is what it's what it looked like yesterday to me. And in an upcoming congressional hearing, very quickly, because look, John Deaton has offered himself as a volunteer to testify January 10th in front of Congress on a hearing related to digital assets. I hope that Congress takes him up on the matter, because obviously he can be a huge, huge benefit to understanding what's going on. And then here's John Deaton in crypto law. They're calling it out here. The countdown is 98 days and counting since Patrick McHenry threatened to issue congressional subpoena to Gary Gensler and the SEC due to his non-compliance. And let us not forget that the reason we're on the edge of a spot ETF or spot Bitcoin ETF being approved isn't because the SEC wanted to. It's because they basically have been cornered by the courts and the rulings. Remember, they were found to be arbitrary and capricious, right? So at this point, the SEC is running out of room, and that's why we're seeing these approvals. Now, I'm not going to play this whole clip, but this is Anthony Pompliano recently on CNBC Squawk Box. I want you to listen to the first couple minutes here of what they say.
Crypto asset manager Grayscale is in talks with firms, including JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs, to potentially play a key role in its proposed Bitcoin ETF. That's according to a Bloomberg report that says the banks are being considered to be authorized participants, firms that have the power to create and redeem shares of the fund. They would provide liquidity and ensure that the ETF share price tracks with the fund's underlying assets. BlackRock previously named JP Morgan Securities to provide that service for its proposed Bitcoin ETF. JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, of course, told Congress last month that he's always been deeply opposed to crypto and Bitcoin, and if he were the government, he'd close it down. Well, traders are on alert as we get closer to the SEC's January 10th deadline to approve spot Bitcoin ETFs. Joining us now with more on the various regulatory outcomes that could impact crypto trades, Anthony Pompliano, founder and partner at Pomp Investment. Anthony, good to see you this morning.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So I have to just dial back. I go back to when the SPY was listed 30 plus years ago. I covered it then. The USO, the oil ETF, the gold trust in 04 and 06. There was never anything like this anticipation. We don't talk about ETF launches and who the authorized participants are. This is bureaucratic back office stuff. It's just how the trades function. So all of which is to say the degree of anticipation of this and how it's made its way into the market is extreme. How is it not just an anticlimax when it happens?
Wall Street is getting invited in anticipation of the greatest show on earth. Right? Bitcoin has been the best performing asset for the last 15 years, and Wall Street's basically been boxed out of it. They haven't had access to this asset. And so I think that's what you're seeing in that pent up excitement. One thing that I do caution these Wall Street investors is you can't trade this like other assets. We saw just yesterday about $1 billion of open interest got wiped out. The guys over at Reflexivity Research did a fantastic job outlining, saying, this asset in 2021 went up almost 800% from before the pandemic started to the kind of the top of the market.
Yeah.
During that time, there was 30% drawdowns. If you're going to try to get levered long and think that, hey, ETF gets approved and this thing just goes to the moon, you're likely to get shaken out or get liquidated.
That is really good advice. Just beware of the volatility.
This thing is on a risk return basis, it's by far the most attractive asset in all the financial markets, but it comes with tons and tons of volatility. And so if you go back to 2017, it was $1,000. We're 45x since 2017. But along the way, we've had two 80% drawdowns, a plethora. I can't even count how many, 30+% drawdowns. And so Wall Street is saying, hey, the ETF's coming. Here we go. Now, I do think over a long period of time, Bitcoin's price is going to continue to go up. We're going to have a persistent bid from all these ETFs. Another thing people aren't talking about, everyone's talking about the primary fund flows. So retail or institutions buying this ETF. But actually what we're starting to see now is other publicly listed funds or ETFs are changing their prospectus to say that they can put up to 15% of their AUM in the Bitcoin ETF. So if you have the best performing asset and you got an ETF that's lagging, why would you not put Bitcoin in your ETF?
But all of this really formalizes the greater fool aspect of why Bitcoin should go up, right?
It sure does, doesn't it? But you know what? Yesterday, everything went down. And oddly enough, day 167 here, Chad Steigrober says, BlackRock makes its first purchase today at a base value of at least $10 million. Now, at a really nice discount due to one opinion hit piece. Y'all just got played by the best player on the board. This is what I was saying when I opened up the video, that we're watching the institutions come in and play games that we don't have the power to play. We don't have the strings to pull. The puppet masters are here. This is their space now, like it or not. And I want to show this because this is the hit piece that he's talking about. Bitcoin Archive shared this yesterday, and Chad reshared it here, and I saw this yesterday afternoon. And this Matrix port on the same day put out two different articles. Take a look at this. Bitcoin spot ETF approval imminent. Bitcoin to jump to $50,000. And then right behind it, why the SEC will reject Bitcoin spot ETF again. I covered this yesterday as well. James Murphy, former securities litigator, meta lawman, follow him. You will learn so much you won't believe it. But he said, if they were to deny these things, you really run the risk as the SEC of having a judge now sanction the entire agency. You've already been found to be arbitrary and capricious. I don't think you want to check the judge's temperature one more time. I really don't think you're going to want to do that, SEC. We shall see here. Nonetheless, let's listen to this clip here where it covers even more of the FUD that went on here by Matrix Port, and take a listen to what Paul Barron covers here.
Are the founders and all of the team over at Matrix Port. And of course, Jian Wu right there again from Bitmain. If you go over to his LinkedIn, John G is the co-founder and CEO of Matrix Port. So you kind of get a frame of the team that's over there. And then a couple of tweets I want to hit on before we head out of here is Jian Wu. This is a new beginning for BitDeer. This is kind of relating back to their relationship to a publicly traded company that is, again, tied to the mining space to create sustainable value for customers, colleagues, and shareholders. This was back in April of 2023. This is on NASDAQ. And then last up here is Jian Wu, pretty much on, I wouldn't say it's an apology, but it's definitely an excuse tweet. And there's some interesting things within this tweet that I want you guys to pay attention to. Expressing their opinions, it's talking about the analysts who operate independently, expressing their opinions without any influence or interference from management. And then I have also I've only briefly glanced at the title of the report. How does that not happen? How do you put an analyst report out to your clients and to the industry without knowing what's in the report?
And to further add to this, because I think he's right on the top of it here, the chairman of BitDeer, co-founder of Bitmain and Matrix Port. Remember, Bitmain was in China. When China pushed the mining out of China, they came to America and became BitDeer, right? And I covered this, and shout out to Jimmy Valley for turning me on to it. But the reality here is that BitDeer, this will tell you how much they think of it as a long-term investment. They sell everything they mine every single day. They don't hold anything for long-term gains. Where'd that money going? Where do you think the money's going? Right? China company now here in America using our electric grid to roll over this Bitcoin that they don't hold for long-term like the rest of us do. Why is that?
I don't believe. As intended, this recent report was prepared for Matrix Port clients. However, it was spread by the media, was not planned for Matrix Port, and is beyond our control. I think that's just an excuse of saying, hey, we kind of screwed up here. Uncertainty of a Bitcoin ETF in 2024 are ultimately of no importance. So now he's backtracking on the whole position of saying this really doesn't matter because, in his opinion, the approval of a spot ETF by the SEC will attract fresh investment into Bitcoin is inevitable. And interestingly enough, the replies were turned off. There you have it, guys. You guys can start to figure these things out if you just take the time, dive in a little deeper on some of these things, and really understand what is moving within the markets. And these are the kind of things that happen right up to these expectation of these bullish signals, such as an ETF, both on a positive and on negative. Doesn't mean that you should just sit back and just wait. You should always have your ear to the ground, but just don't make rash decisions super fast. Obviously, if if you yourself are really convinced in a particular asset, and anytime it falls below a certain number and you're like, hey, that's a number that I want to get into, okay, then that's you. But don't worry. I think we are in a much better spot than a lot of people realize, especially going forward in crypto. So,
no doubt about it. Now, and obviously there are some real truths about Bitcoin, right? Just as a full reminder, you guys know I have exposure to Bitcoin, even though I fully realize Department of Homeland Security has identified the 4 Satoshis, and the rest of the entire government and the agencies like the CFTC and the SEC are acting like they don't know it either. You can't forget that. If enough people out here say it's nighttime and it's actually daytime, it won't matter that it's actually daytime if you get enough people to say otherwise, right? Raoul Pal says here, rejection to ETF FUD, the crash. The other mantra here is very simple from Raoul Pal. Step back and ask yourself the macros. Is the world becoming less digital or more digital every day? Are investors who aren't exposed to it getting more interested in it? Yes. Is the capital flow coming in? Yes. Is the business cycle supportive? Yes. Are liquidity conditions supportive? Yes. Everything else is noise. It doesn't change anything. It actually gives it higher probability of rising because you flushed out the leverage. So there is that point too. But we also understand that BlackRock and others are grabbing massive amounts of it right at the time that it happens to get FUD and crash. Then we saw this break. This was yesterday evening here. Very exciting. Fidelity files for Bitcoin ETF registration as securities, which means they've taken another step forward. This is not the official application. This is another step forward now. Breaking Fidelity just registered Form 8-A for their Fidelity Wise Origin Bitcoin Fund. Listen to this. 8A means they are now a registered security that can be traded publicly. FBTC ETF is approved, says Marty Party. Update, next will be the CBOE listing, and it gives the number there, and it says update when I get alerts. What is SEC Form A for those of us that don't know? It is required by the Securities Exchange Commission from companies seeking to register securities. It must be submitted before securities can be offered on an exchange. It is also known as registration of certain classes of securities and can short form registration statement. And it says here 8A is one of the primary forms companies use to register securities for the listing or quoting on an exchange under the Securities Exchange Act of 1934 for offering to the public. So this also happened. Grayscale has also moved forward with Form 8A. Yeah, I think let's go is what is on the table here, ladies and gentlemen. And think of this. We possibly are within 6 days of this happening by next Wednesday, right? It could happen today. They could do it early if they want to. But the fact that these large entities like Grayscale and certainly Fidelity, with trillions in Fidelity assets under management, they're not moving forward to take steps to register this because it's a no. That's at least how I'm picking up on it today. It's not financial advice, and neither is this. Looking at the XRP BTC chart here, we could see a couple different scenarios play out according to Crypto Insight UK. And the question here is, first of all, we could argue that yesterday's wick down was a liquidity grab below the range and could fuel us to move 119% versus Bitcoin to the top of this range. Remember, breaking above the top gray box, which we'll look at in a moment, is when things become really interesting, but this normally happens in a flash. Secondly, continue to grind down versus Bitcoin to the launchpad area. This is about 50% loss in value versus Bitcoin. This doesn't mean XRP loses 50% value. It could mean Bitcoin has a big push and sucks liquidity. Historically, when we have reached the launchpad area, we have seen subsequent moves of 2,000+% to 5,000% and 500+%, giving us an average of 2,726% versus Bitcoin. Lastly, XRP may never recover. I know many of you reading this, including myself, but that is a possible reality. It is just a possible for XRP to push from here or any level and outperform anything we've seen on the chart. There's no historical data to support at this point. Support this point. It says, so what do you believe? Does XRP have a short-term move, or do we have more pain to come as we load a large move? And he says here, one final point I would like to throw in the mix is the weekly RSI, Relative Strength Index. As you can see, it says we haven't seen a parabolic move in XRP since 2017 reflected as the RSI. It says here we also haven't created a high versus Bitcoin since then. There is a saying in TA world that goes, the longer the base, the further in space. Remember, we just played that clip from Brian Kelly yesterday. As you all know, I personally believe XRP has a big move coming in the future. Whether you believe it or not, that is up to you. I have my money where my mouth is, and I'm only human though, and can always be wrong. Let's see how it plays out. You can see these gray areas here that he was mentioning here, and the launch pad area that he's talked about here as well. This is where we currently are after that wick. We will see what goes on. A lot of TA is extremely positive and bullish to where we're going. And I want to encourage you to come into the freedom zone, because freedom of speech, it doesn't exist on social media. It doesn't exist on YouTube. I have been a victim of censorship for years. And you know what? Freedom of speech, it exists inside the freedom zone. And today inside the freedom zone, we're going to take on a lot of what's unfolding with Jeffrey Epstein. And if you want to be a part of that conversation, it's a great conversation inside of here. I encourage you to join us for next to nothing. Go to digperspectives.com, click the Freedom Zone, and come on in. I'll see you inside. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. I'll catch all of you on the next one.